Ölgen kuchilarda Ümit üzme aziz xalqim Ümit üzme ey ana yurt Biz atandık bu küreşke O yıl taştak uyuşup Allah berse bu nusretni Bizgilerimiz sep bulup Zalimlarını yığlatgudek Uğuz gibi küçlük bulup Lepildeydi asminanda Göz çaknetip şu günü Ay yıldızlık gök bayrağım Ey ana makam Ay yıldızlık gök bayrağım
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to another special episode of Talk East Turkestan. As you've seen in the ad today, I have special guests with me, a Canadian couple which lived in the Uyghur region for about a decade. And they're going to tell us their story, what they saw. And you would have noticed recently in CCP propaganda, they've been taking Westerners into the region saying that there is no genocide and everything's nice and everything that you see in the Western media is not real. So I have with me a couple joining with me from Canada, and they're going to tell us their story. I noticed that there's a bit of a glitch, and hopefully that goes away as the interview goes on. But as long as you guys are hearing me well, just let me know how the stream is going throughout the interview, and hopefully it'll be okay. All right, I'd like to welcome to our show Gary and Andrea Dyck. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, that's fine. Dyck or Dyck is both fine.
Okay. Welcome to the show. And yeah, when I first saw your article in a Canadian paper, I was fascinated because normally we don't see Westerners speak out, everyday Westerners, who are not journalists or who don't have anything to gain from their story. So yeah, let's get straight into it. I basically want to start off with a bit of a background and ask, why you ended up moving to the Uyghur region and stayed as long as you did, and sort of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we moved actually to Central Asia first in the year 2000, and in Uzbekistan. And I was with an NGO working for development work there. Taught English the first couple of years. We were young, in our early 20s and such, and just fell in love with the place, with the culture, and even got into the local poetry from the 15th century, from the Silk Road, and helped with starting translating it after about being there for 2 or 3 years, and things just kept going there. And then
we moved. We just enjoyed the region. We went in our early 20s, but then we went over to Xinjiang in 2007 and did some language study. And Gary set up a large-scale compost company in Turpan, taking the waste from the farmers' fields and turning it into usable soil for the area. We really enjoyed living there, making friends. Our kids played soccer on the street with other kids, and I got to be in ladies' chais, and we enjoyed the region so much until we always enjoyed it, but it was such a grief to see what's happened in the last few years and watching that process start.
So could we actually go through that? So you first went there in 2007, how did it change? How did it progress? And obviously it's gotten to a stage where we see, mass concentration camps. We've all heard the stories, but I don't want to get into what's been happening in the media. I want your firsthand experience. What did you notice throughout the years, and how did it get more brutal, so to speak?
Mm-hmm. So first, as soon as we moved there, we noticed the racial tensions, the separation between the people groups. You know, I would be standing at a bus stop and an older man, a Uyghur man, just out of frustration, he would just say, he would talk about how he couldn't get a job and the struggles he was having. And, just having somebody from somewhere else that he felt able to just share, it was very interesting. And then we actually witnessed the 2009 riots in Urumqi. We were living just right in the middle of that area and saw what was happening from a 16th floor balcony. And then after that, it just got so much more tight, and they started taking down the traditional Mahalla communities. And that just started to progress things that were restrictions and things. But until 2016, we saw those things ramp up.
Yeah. And then 2016 was a whole nother level yet of ramping up of the process. We could tell 2016 things weren't going, and they were getting tighter and not going in a good direction for the people. And so, I think we were in Urumqi visiting one time, and we just heard about there was young men had been rounded up and every evening and such, and no one was doing anything about it. They couldn't. And, it's just like, where is this going? It's like they're trying to do things and there's no pushback, and it just keeps going further yet.
Yeah, so 2016 was when we saw like those convenience police stations put up at every major intersection. And it was little things like we're noticing why are there now barriers for the bicycles, and why are there now barriers for the cars, and you can't cross the street here. Like, it was just a really steady increase of barriers and restrictions. It used to take me 5 minutes to walk to the lady where I bought milk, and now it was 20, and I had to walk around this other way. And then a few months later, there's now police stationed along the whole way. So every week, a new rule, a new restriction. It was pervasive. And so at first it was that tightening of restrictions, but we're looking at this and thinking, where is it going? And then they started to have the meetings, early morning flag raisings and extra meetings after work, and a lot of this propaganda. And we would hear from our friends, oh, they want us to stay safe. They're keeping us safe from terrorism. And I was like, but who, where, like where, why? It even felt like our friends felt there was this belief that this was all for safety. And it was heart-wrenching to see some things that are normal parts of life. So, knives became illegal. You couldn't buy a knife or a pair of scissors in the supermarket. You had to get permission to have it. Later, you actually could only have one knife in your household, and it had to be registered at the police station. So something that's basic to life, a mother and daughter could not cook beside each other because you couldn't have two knives in a house. So some of these basic things became very difficult.
As foreigners living in the region, there would have been extra eyes on you. When I was there last time, I was in 2014. And I went to sort of renew, the Blue card, like the blue little book. And they asked me, are you a journalist? Do you work for any sort of security firm? I'm like, I'm just a teacher. Mm-hmm. And so did you go through that as far? Did people start, whether it be ordinary people, start looking at you differently? Or did the authorities sort of have an eye on yourself or other foreigners in the region, thinking that you may be, CIA, as they say, like they give you various labels, even though you're Canadian? Yeah.
I mean, at the beginning, it was very nice because, most people enjoyed the Canadian connection, and, they had studied different things, positive things about, Canadians and the connection, we're good friends, of course. And so that was nice. And starting the business, it was good. They understand that Canada has good agriculture and that industry is strong. So it was a plus. But then, over time it got tighter, and I think it was mostly when the camps were starting. Actually, then I really felt it because it was, the friends of ours that were Uyghur, they were being taken for any kind of obvious reason. Maybe they had traveled overseas, and now having a French that's a foreigner became another liability for them to be taken into the camps, just because of me. simple means. So that was hard for us to see what was happening, just because we were there, and that's actually one of the reasons why we ended up leaving.
It was,
we didn't want to be a liability to our friends.
Yeah, and in a way, I was surprised we didn't get more attention, and really we were able to keep going, just doing our life, and didn't actually get extra attention. It was really, the focus was on the Uyghur people around us, and that's our focus. Gary, because he had a business, had to set up extra security. All the businesses had to have riot gear and an extra guard at the door. And all these things. He had to put razor wire around his compost facility, and all this, the riot security stuff and security cameras. But everybody had to do that. So
yeah, it costs every business money. It was very hard for all the small and medium businesses to do that. Mine was a medium business, and in Canada, we make compost outside of a village, and it's on the open field, and you have your machinery, and sometimes you maybe have a small wall, but that's it. But here it was just, the wall with the razor wire and the security cameras, and then the 2 level of gate barriers, just for protecting manure.
Yeah, I just saw a comment saying how ridiculous it is. I mean, you're just running a compost business, but now you've got all this security. What was being fed to the people in the media? Because obviously, as foreigners yourself, and you want information. So when you turn on state-run television, what were they saying to the people? Because we know that state-run television in the Uyghur region is different to what is promoted or boosted outside of the country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we watched, the messages, there were a lot of it was always sort of perky, friendly messages, right? It was always, this is for the safety. There was one time where there was a message that a 10-year-old girl had been killed. And so from then on, every day, the whole main street leading to where the children's school was shut down and guarded by police. And there were escorts to take the children to school. So it was another ramping up of this crazy security, but it was for sort of promoted as for the good. It was always promoted for the good. In one of the last months we were there, after the camps had been going for a while, we heard in the news that they had just built 30 new crematoriums across the region, and it was also advertised as modernizing funeral practices. It just turns your stomach.
Yeah, because that's very different than the Uyghur way.
Mm-hmm. But why are we suddenly needing so many new crematoriums?
I don't know if you had VPNs at that time to sort of look what was happening in the Western media, but what were you hearing from the ground? Obviously, the government was saying it was for everyone's good, that people were being sent for vocational training. I'm sure they use that sort of same lingo. But what were the unofficial reports you may have heard from individuals, or were people able to speak, incognito, so to speak, as to what was really happening, or speaking in code, or?
Yeah, there was one friend I had who was used as one of the cadres going house to house in the villages. She spent less time with me in the last year, but we passed each other on the street where it was not as many people looking. And she said they've already taken 30% of the people and they're aiming for 80%. And that was March, or that was November 2017 or March 2018. It was somewhere in that winter that she knew they were aiming to take 80%.
Yeah, and we had started our business by 2014. So starting in 2014, I was going to the different villages outside of Turpan, and had a sales agent with me. And so by 2017, we're going into the same villages that we've been going to the last 2-3 years. And you could just tell there was less people out. We looked at each other, and it was like, where are the hundreds of people that are usually in this village on the street? Now there was maybe 3 or 4, and part of that is, they're being taken to the camps. And the other part was people are just staying at home fearful. They don't want to get any attraction. Mm-hmm. The fear was you could just feel it.
You met one grape farmer who was doing the farms for 6 people because the other farmers were taken. I heard a story from a policewoman who worked in one of the camps and told my friend, so it's, secondhand, but she was in there and said the rooms were so full that if you were just all like lying cramped in one room, and if you stood up to go to the bathroom, which was a pot in the corner, you could not lie back down. People were just standing through the night, and there were no showers, no proper bathrooms, no laundry, no replaced clothes. It's not a school.
And there was something about the food. What did you
It
say?
was just really bad gruel. People were getting sick.
You had to pay extra for sugar.
For a little packet of sugar. They would get an amount of money each month, as so that, but all that they could buy with it was disposable underwear and little packets of sugar.
Wow. So you had a legitimate business. So did you guys fully shut up shop? Is that business still running, or what happened there?
Yeah, I had to leave in 2018, and we wanted to keep it going. Our sales had doubled every year. The first year was more just, we made a bit and we gave it away just for the farmers to start using and testing it themselves. And it was good. So the second year we doubled, and even the last year we still doubled, just because there was so much belief in it. The results were good. So it was really hard to have to shut it down, and we're just, starting to ramp up. And so we tried to, see if we could sell it off, even to some other, another business, a Han, whatever. Just wanted to keep going. And the government was positive about it too. But the economy was so poor, and people didn't want to invest in the region because, what was going on with the camps and, the farmers being taken away. So we had to shut it down, unfortunately.
So did you have any friends or people that you knew who ended up leaving the camps? And if so?
No, we didn't.
No,
you didn't.
Yeah.
No.
I know there's probably been some that have left, but that was in 2018 when we left. There was no such thing yet.
Okay. Was there ever an opportunity, or was there a way to sort of bring your concerns to authorities? And I'm only saying this, like, I know you and I know, but for the audience's sake, is there a sort of, I don't see as much people anymore, these sort of concerns that you've had? Why have you guys ramped up security? Was there, an opportunity for this to happen?
Yeah. I met once with the deputy police chief in the Turpan region, and just shared with him, I don't like where this is going. I wish it would be better for the people, and this is not good for the people, for the economy. And he nodded his head. He saw that. I think, for us that are not there, well, even for those that are there, we need to realize too that there are a lot of people in the region that are, in leadership, even with the police. They're not all happy about this. They're not all just doing this and believing it. There's a lot of people there that are sad. They don't know what they can do. They just hope for this to move somehow past. And it's I just wanted to share that too. And it's been very hard for many people.
And the structure is so long of the hierarchies that there's nobody that feels like they really have control over their decisions about what they're doing, And I understand we definitely, in sharing our story, we have no desire to stir up any kind of anti-Asian rhetoric.
Yeah.
We had Han Chinese friends as well, and one of our dear friends was heartbroken as well, and doing whatever he could for those Uyghur people in his life. I know that's not.
There's a group of Han businessmen that went to Beijing, I heard, to kind of try to appeal what was going on, because it's not good for the economy. They're trying to use that reasoning, and that obviously didn't work, but I applauded them.
So it just, the structure of control was so difficult. I would sometimes think, like, what could we do? How far could we drive with our van? How could we hide somebody under, the stories from past historical events, people would get hidden, or
like the Holocaust,
taken. Yeah. And just the level of control was so incredible, and the amount of security and the distances, you couldn't fill in gas without using a local friend's ID card and your passport. and then they would get a phone call if they had used more gas. So it was just, yeah, it was incredible.
So what's the reaction when you see those Westerners, especially these YouTubers that go into the region and go, look, this Western propaganda of what's happening, there's no genocide going on. Like, you lived there for a decade. How do you react to that?
Oh, it's painful.
Yeah, it is painful. It's sad to see. I mean, a lot of people have their bias, and it's hard to be objective sometimes. But I think, yeah, people need to be more careful and more sensitive to when people are being oppressed, to acknowledging that and not trying to cover it up.
I sometimes would walk in certain parts of Urumqi, or you could walk in places and not see it. It's possible, but it's because we had friends in some of these situations where it's not possible to not see it. There was one woman I was friends with, and I was on the street and I talked to her, and she was completely full of fear. And this was going to be the first night that she had ever slept alone in her home. She'd grown up in a traditional Uyghur courtyard, extended family. And this night, her mother-in-law was gone. Her husband was being, used to live in all the different village homes. Her niece was gone. Suddenly, it was her son was taken away to a school. It was the first night she was going to be alone. And so I offered to stay for the night with her. Just slept with her, like the terror of being in your mid-40s and you've never in your life slept by yourself. So I slept with her, and in the morning, she invited me to do the prayers beside her, and we did that. It was very precious. And then I quickly left at 5:30 in the morning, and I can see the police vans circling the block, and I'm trying to be careful that nobody see that I've just come out of her house. It was very surreal.
Now, I understand you have some poems that you have composed about the Uyghurs. Would you like to, do us the honor of, sharing some of those, please?
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes, the prose, the feelings are hard to capture, and that's why we need poetry sometimes to speak from the heart, because that's what this is about. It's about the humanity. It's about our friends and people's lives. It truly is. So this first one kind of covers the general, what I saw and how to share from my heart. It's called High-Rise Tombs, like high-rise apartments. You've never seen such high tombstones. They arose this year all around the cities. The graveyards multiplied, and yet there were no shots fired, no outbreak of disease. No, everything here is pretty quiet and tidy. But in that quiet, I can hear the writhing of those under the stones, and the crying of those who miss them in the village homes. But not too loudly, otherwise they too will be taken to these graveyards of high-rise tombs. The government calls them re-education schools, but they don't fool me. I see the razor wire, the cameras, the guards on their high walls, thousands, now millions taken in, but never coming out. When will they stop the building of these modern graveyards? Until there is no one living outside their walls, I fear.
Wow, that's powerful. You've described the camps as modern graveyards, and I've just got a comment here saying, what Gary and Andrea are basically saying is what they saw when they left 3 years ago, but it's not evidence of genocide. And what do you say to comments like that, saying, all right, there's something going on, but why do you need to make that leap to genocide?
So what we saw was this first the development of the police state, and then the many things that were tearing apart the culture. So there was certainly, we saw cultural genocide to start with, right? But then there's the other levels where there The deliberate separation of families is part of it, and the amount of, like, there is death happening in those camps. I don't have numbers, and there's also the sending of children around the country and into residential schools. So that's a piece of it. Others can speak better to the actual definition of genocide and all the pieces that fit together for that. That's not our expertise. What we're sharing is the pieces that we saw that led up to that process.
Yeah, and there's what's her name, Dr.
There's a quotation that we read, but yeah, it's a process.
That genocide is a process. It's not just a one-time event. Bam, there it is, and you have the people, dead. But it is a process of taking away culture. It's a process of taking away people's lives, and just that they have nothing left to live for, and separating them, and no one deserves to be treated like this, and how restrictive it has been, how pervasive it has been. So yeah, this, the legalities and all that, the semantics, that's not our concern, but we are really concerned just about the treatment, the degradation of the people.
I'd like to hear one more poem, or as many poems as you can share with us, and then we can, we can
one more.
Yeah.
And this is actually good because it does talk. This poem is more just pointing out the humanity. The focus shouldn't be about the religion, about the politics, the geography. It's when it comes down to it, it's about the heart, about the people. And that's what we need to keep in the forefront, not arguing about semantics and little things, but it's about how people are being treated. That is what the issue is. They are your best friend, asking another 5 questions after, how are you? They are your mother, always ready to laugh, pray, and cry your life along. They live in high-walled schools now, learning to stop asking questions, stop laughing, stop praying, stop crying. They work your fields, picking your cotton in the cold fall. They work your factories for free, turning your cotton into the clothes you wear. They are Uyghur, and their life is not cheap. A centuries-old culture of hospitality, music, and solidarity, now hanging by a thread.
Wow. That one was really good. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I just hope there are more voices like you. There may be a couple like you watching right now, and I'd be happy to have them on, just like you guys, and what you guys speaking out. That's all we can do. That as you mentioned, there are policymakers out there and UN bodies, trying to determine a genocide and trying to work out things of how to deal with this regime. And and our role is to speak and bring these stories to light.
Yeah.
Are there any last words you'd like to share with our audience before I let you guys go?
Yeah, do you want to just say, sorry, it's so precious to be with people, but just share the one last story, honor your goodbye of your friend.
Oh, man. So my good friend, we have 3 kids, and we're leaving the Uyghur region. We're moving back to Canada in 2018. And he did the trip with us to Urumqi to get to the airport. And we go to the hotel by the airport. And, we have all our bags with us with our 3 kids. So it was 10 suitcases. It's a lot, but we're moving back home to Canada. And he comes in, brings the suitcases with me from the van into the hotel. And as soon as we get into the hotel, they're like, no, he can't come in. And I says, well, he's my friend. He's helping me with all these bags. And they're like, no, he's Uyghur. He cannot come in. That's what they said. And so that's where I had to say goodbye to my friend. and that's the last I saw him. And once again, no one should be treated like that. Restrictions and worry that's not enough to that someone's humanity should be limited like that. That should never happen. So keep the focus on the heart, stay soft is what my encouragement is. I know there's a lot of hard news, but let's keep going, telling the stories like you said, and praying and hoping that this will change, knowing it will change eventually.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Gary and Andrea. Don't leave us. I'm going to do our goodbye after the screen. I'm just going to close out the show. I know my screen's frozen now. Thank you so much. And until next time, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ümit üzme aziz halqim, ümit üzme ey ana yurt. Biz atlandık bu güreşke, uyul taştek uyuşup. Allah verse bu nusretni, bizgilerimiz sep bu